Alright, so today we're going to be looking at the business cycle. First, we should probably ask, what is the business cycle? And basically, it's a measure or model of how the economy is doing, and it's usually referring to GDP, gross domestic product. So, when looking at the business cycle, there's four little words that you want to know. Those words are expansion, peak, contraction, and trough. So right here I'm going to draw a little model that's more or less what the business cycle looks like. So these areas of upward growth when the economy is expanding, doing quote-unquote well, even though we don't want this rapid growth, but still, when it's expanding, that's called the expansion. And then at the top here, where the expansion stops and the contraction starts, that is called the peak. And then this scary looking line, when the economy starts getting smaller or doing worse off or shrinking, you guessed it, that's called the contraction. And then at the very bottom, when the scary contraction stops, right here, that is called the trough. And I just want to point out, you probably know we've been saying in all our videos that the goal of any economy is steady growth, just like that. Even though this is like the business cycle and this is what economies look like, there still is that steady growth in there. I also wanted to show you what a recession and a depression are, because we'll be looking at those in just a minute. So a recession, I think it's formally 2 quarters or more of low economic activity. So I'll show you what that looks like. There's your expansion, don't worry about that, peak. So then there's your contraction, like we just saw. Hopefully you know what that is. And then a recession is when economic activity gets worse for a longer period of time. That is what a recession looks like, 2 quarters or more. And then a depression, you've probably all heard of the Great Depression. That's when economic activity is low for an even longer period of time. That could be months and even years. So there's your contraction, recession, and then depression. And we'll be looking at these two right now. Instead of doing one of my corny examples, I wanted to show you what an actual American business cycle looked like, and this one's from 1890 to 1940, and I want to point out a few key points. So right here, this little rugged expansionary period, that was World War I, when the factories were being worked, artillery was being made, troops were being tended to. And then this little, not so little, this 2-year low economic output period, that was the recession of 1920 to 1921, and that was directly after World War I due to bad policies when the troops came home. And then I guess you could call this little expansionary period the Roaring '20s. And then, you guessed it, starting with the stock market crash on October 29th, 1929, and extending well into the 1930s, this low economic output period, very low, was called the Great Depression. Very scary, lots of deflation going on there. And then if you continued this graph into the 1940s, you'd see a boom in the economy when once again the factories were being worked and troops were being tended to, because that is World War II right there. So that was the business cycle and I hope you cycle back here for more videos.